Hello, everyone. I'm not sure if you can hear me all, but welcome. I'll just, can you see my screen there? Great, okay. Well, I'd like to welcome everyone today to our Resourced for Growth 4-part series. So starting today, we're going to be working through 4 different topics over the next, or actually 6 weeks or so. So big welcome. We're really glad that you could make it here today. So just as a bit of a heads up, this session is being recorded so that people that can't make it on the day can access it a bit later. And thank you for miking you're muting your microphones, and if possible, particularly when it comes to questions, if you're comfortable to turn your video on. I know that some of you are very remote, rural, and it does affect your bandwidth. So if you can, a bit later to ask questions, you can pop your video on. So feel free to use the chat function of the Zoom, and I'll be checking just to see while Laura's chatting away. I'll check to see what the questions are that are coming in. And if you would like to ask a question anonymously, feel free just to directly chat to me, and I'll raise that question on your behalf. So just a bit of shameless self-promotion. So this 4-part series is being brought to you by Business Navigators Western Downs, and as you can see there, we are supported by Shell's QGC Business and delivered by Toowoomba and Surat Basin Enterprise. And our key role is to support local businesses across the Western Downs to grow sustainably, which contributes to a more sustainable business community. So that's a picture of our team there. So I'm the lead business coach, but I'm the newest member of the team, only having come on board in May. And we have Susie as one of our business coaches, and Ailsa as well, who does our digital marketing. So we are a pro bono service. We don't charge for our services. So luckily Shell likes to pay us instead of us having to charge people directly. So we do finance, help businesses develop their growth strategies, how they're going to finance that, and how they're going to market their businesses during periods of growth. So if you're in the Western Downs, you have access to our service, and the details are popped up there in case you want to make some contact with us. So the program today has come about because we have noticed, common themes that come up when we're working with small businesses. Often about, a business might start out as a couple of people working together, and if they do it right, it grows. It's then how do you stretch your business out, and how do you go from being 1 or 2 people to bringing on new staff? How do you create new roles, and how do you pay for that? So this series is really around looking at the very grassroots processes that you can go through and you can develop in order to stretch and grow your business. So today we're doing session 1 there, which we've called Growing Pains, and we're going to have Laura from Profit First Australia taking today and tomorrow. I'll introduce you in a second, Laura. And then we have I think a 1-week break before sessions 3 and 4. Sessions 3 and 4, we're bringing in sort of, thought leaders in the side of attraction and retention, and we're looking at some of the issues that are particularly faced by businesses in rural and remote areas in attracting people into the areas and into jobs and keeping them there. So even though you might have a very small business now, as you grow and develop, attraction and retention are going to become issues I'd like to say they're not going to be, but they will continue to be issues across the Western Downs. I just want to just briefly talk about how I came into bringing Laura on board. I have quite a commute, living in a country area, of course. I have quite a commute to get to work, and I stumbled across Profit First by this guy, Mike McAllowitz, and listened to the audiobook. He's quite entertaining to listen to as you read through, very easy to listen to. And I just found myself nodding along in agreement, going, oh, yes, 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 with a lot of the concepts that he raised in that book. And so, of course, I ripped through that book pretty quickly and then bought the next book and the next book. I think after 6 books, I'd had enough of Mike, but it did take me six books. And he's quite quirky to listen to. He's quite entertaining. I love this image of him. It sort of sums him up, I think, some of his style. So really interesting books, really good for small businesses starting out with a vision of growth, some really great strategies. So I was lucky to find Laura, who who works with Mike as well. So because I enjoyed those books so much, and we're going to gift these 3 books to people that have registered through Eventbrite to join the session for today and next week. So I don't have everybody's street address. So if you want to get a copy of these 3 books, please email me your street address and I will pop those books into the mail when they arrive. So I'm still ordering those. So without further ado, let me just introduce you to Laura, who is the CEO of Profit First Australia. And Laura is going to be taking today and next week, as I said, and looking at those small business saving strategies that Mike has developed and that Laura delivers right across Australia. Would that be right, Laura?
Yes, that's correct. We work with business owners over Australia and New Zealand.
Right, okay, well, that's quite a breadth. Well, would you like to give yourself an intro and tell us what all about Laura?
Sure. What I'm going to do is I'm going to just share my screen quickly because I know that some people like visuals. Can you see that slide okay? I should say growing pains?
Yes. Awesome.
Yep. So let me just start here. I like to basically introduce myself. My name is Laure Elkaslassy. One of the things that I am called is the Profit Pioneer. The reason why I'm called that, and I want to just talk about this now to get it out of the way, is that profit is often considered a dirty word for business owners. And I would love to help change that mindset so that we can pioneer a different way. And maybe you might want to take profit and call it purpose, whatever's going to make you really understand why it's so important that we have a profitable business. And that's why I really like to say that I'm the profit pioneer, because I want all businesses to succeed. And I think the root level, the small businesses are the ones that have such a big impact in the world today. A little bit about myself. I have 2 young boys, as you can see in this photo. I actually run multiple businesses, and 2 of my businesses have me working as a bus agent and an accountant, as well as educating business coaches, accountants, and bookkeepers in the Profit First methodology, which is a framework for businesses to implement that work with our human behavior. Don't try and make it jargony like it is speaking to accountants often, and I'm allowed to say that because I am one. I have also lived in many various places. In one of my businesses, I'm a travel agent as well. I have been, so I really do understand what it's like to run businesses. I love organizing events. I also speak multiple languages. And I'm a huge coffee lover. So if you have a coffee and you've got it there, I hope you enjoy it during this session. And I love to give back. And the reason why I share this is it just gives you a little bit of an insight as to who I am as a person, rather than an expert in something, because I run small businesses. I'm a mother to 2 kids, and the juggle can be real. All right, what we're going to be covering today in this session is really understanding yourself and your business, culture, and why it's important right now, even before hiring, identifying what help you need and the best way to approach it, capturing systems with ease, and people first. So as you've probably noticed, I've spoken about Profit First, and Pauline introduced Mike's book, Profit First. what we're really going to be concentrating on today is the people aspect of that. Now, how how this will work and what the topics are. There's a lot to be covered in here, and we're together for quite a period of time. So please feel free to write anything in the chat. I'm very happy to answer any questions, to have a conversation around things that may not be clear or you'd like more information about. There'll be an overview, and then we're going to dive a bit deeper into each of the topics and have opportunity for questions and answers. And feel free at any time to put your hand up to have a hot seat. And what that means is there might be something that's really pressing for you in your business in a particular topic that we discussed today that you'd like to just feel like it could almost dive a bit deeper than what I have, maybe shared. I'm very happy to give you that opportunity as well. I wanted to start here. So what is the overview? What is the approach? And what does running like clockwork mean? As Pauline shared, that's also based on a book called Clockwork. And the idea is that you can get your business to a point where you are not the sole person it depends on. And what that really means, and it looks different for every single person. So for example, in one of my businesses, I don't want to be in the day-to-day there. I want to be the person that works with the team and they run things and that sort of stuff. Whereas in my other business, I actually want to be in the doing. I want to spend lots of time with my clients, doing the work with them, implementing with them. And you know what? Both are perfectly fine. And so I just want to say it's totally okay. Please give yourself permission to have a business that suits you. But in order to run like clockwork, there's 3 things that we really need to look at and address. And that is people, processes, and planning. In my experience of setting up my business, even when I was the only person working in it, you're always told you need to have your processes in place. You need to know this thing, you need to know that. And that's great in theory, but it's not just about the processes. The process can actually come, and we'll go into that in more detail a little bit later. Where we also really need to understand and work on is to find the right people. And people can be a multitude of things. It doesn't mean employees, it doesn't mean a big team, it could be a VA, but understanding what kind of person and the right person for your business is in there. And then to bring it all together, you really do need to have some planning. And I know that planning is not particularly sexy, but if you can plan, and take some time to do so, then the other 2 circles, as I've got here, really come together, and you get that sweet spot where you can run your business a little bit further, and you don't feel the same pains, and you don't feel as stuck as what you might be in, and you can actually achieve those goals. For me, my biggest thing is freedom. I want to be able to feel that I have the freedom to be with my kids if I need to be with my kids, to work the hours that I need to work, and that doesn't just happen by magic. It is definitely something that is around having the right people, having some processes in place around that, and planning for what that actually looks like. I'm just going to stop here for 1 second. I can't see the chat at the moment. So I'm just going to stop my screen share and get that up. I apologize for that. I think it might be my as well. Okay, is that a bit better? Cool. All right, I'm just going to bring up the screen share again. All right, we're back. Great. I really want to start here. Let's look at different lenses in which we can see our businesses and ourselves and understand ourselves, because our business is there for a particular purpose, for a reason, to help us, to be the vehicle to allow us to either have, put our kids through particular schooling, or be able to take those holidays, or to bring in the income that you want, or to have the impact. And without understanding where you are right now, or what your current thoughts are, it's hard to change or understand best next step for you. So I just want to take a moment to go into different mindsets that are prevalent and that maybe you can look at and identify where it might be coming up for you. So some of you might have heard of growth or fixed mindset. And what that is, we'll start with the fixed mindset. That's really, the thought process is like, oh, I'm not really a leader, or I'm not a systems person, or I don't have time to, which is a really easy trap to get into when we're running a business, when we're feeling the pressure and that sort of stuff. It doesn't mean we have to be positive and untruthful to be in the growth mindset, but you can be like, I don't feel like I'm the best leader, but I'm going to improve and try and be that leader in my business. Or I don't feel like I have the time to be able to bring on a staff member or to get the help that I need, but I'm going to learn how or find support. So it's just that little tweak in how you'd approach your business, and whether if it's just I can't do this, or is there a way to possibly make this work. Then there's also the long versus the short. So the easiest way to look at this is the long game versus the short game. Short game being, I need to answer that immediately. I need to do this right now. How often do we have this task list where we feel like we just need to get it done? And it needs to happen now. And if we're unclear as to what's urgent versus important, it plays into it. When we're looking to move out of our growing pains or to expand into a business in whatever way it looks like for you, especially when it comes to finding support that we require, it's very important to look at what's your long game? What is important to you to do? Could it be, not answering that email immediately and creating that process so that someone else can take that on, or setting those boundaries in place so that you have more time to consider what is next for you, what's the best thing to do? And I think just highlighting that for yourself can make a really, really good indicator as to where you're at and what could possibly change to get you to that support level or find that right person. The other thing that I want to explore today is individual versus team. When a person is realizing that things are difficult, they need help, they might need to bring on someone to help them in their business, we're very used to being that individual. And it's things like, I'm the only person that can do this thing, or I know this really well, and how could I possibly teach someone to the same standard? Or, I can do it quickly, more efficiently, and that stops people from taking that next step, because you are amazing at what you do, and you are never going to find someone that is you. So let's just accept that right now. But if you can step away from you as the individual and look at, well, what does a team look like? It is allowing you to understand that that particular thing can be given to someone else because that's their zone of excellence. Whereas we're doing it because we're wearing all of the hats in our business and we find it really difficult to put something down. And so if we could step away or identify where we're having these thought processes around, I can't find someone because they're never going to be able to do this and that sort of stuff, it's going to really help you to at least open your mind to the fact that there could be people that can do particular things, not the whole thing, better than you. And if you allow yourself to consider that, and what you'll also find is that when you bring someone on, it's very easy to go back to the, oh, well, I'll just do this and then I'll tell them later, or I'll get them to do something at a later stage, or I don't have that process and that sort of thing. And so being clear that there's this going on for you is going to help you to delegate. And we'll go into how to best do that soon, but I wanted to at least bring into this conversation, this session, these ideas and concepts for you. The other thing is control versus freedom. What we tend to do when we're feeling stuck or when we know that we need support is that we try and control everything. we're constantly going, well, I need to do this and I'm going to do that and I can't let go of this. And you know, that feeling state and the thoughts that you get in your head when you're really trying to control and manage and make sure that you can keep your business going. If you could just for a moment consider, what does freedom actually look like, and what having a support person could do to allow you to no longer feel constricted and experience those freedoms for you. And again, I highlight these as really important because if we don't understand ourselves and where we are now, it's very difficult. I'm not saying it's impossible, because we can absolutely do it while we're learning, because we're humans and these things pop up and it's a cycle that we go through. It's going to help you identify where you could potentially shift your lens or your mindset when it comes to finding the right support for you. Now, if you have any questions at all, please just do let me know. Feel free to jump in, Pauline, if there's anything there that you're wanting me to explore further. Another concept that I really, really want to delve into, and you're probably thinking, what of all these
Laura,
things? Yes.
I will interrupt you there and just ask a question.
Yeah.
You've dealt with lots and lots of small business owners over the years. Which of those mindsets do you think are the ones that people struggle with the most? Or which one would you say was a very common barrier to people growing their business?
The biggest thing that I have seen is that we have the short game in focus, like the next most urgent thing that needs to happen, rather than looking at, well, if you didn't do that and you did something else, would that then give you that outcome, that end result? The other thing is the control. It's very, very hard to let go of control sometimes. I've seen that small business owners have absolutely gone, no, I can't do that. I have to hold on to this. And it's not possible. It'll all fall apart. And in actual fact, the control is what ends up unraveling for someone. So that's a great question, Pauline.
Yeah, thanks for that.
No worries. The other concept that I want to bring into this, and you're probably thinking, okay, but what does this have to do with, getting a support team and being able to find people and that sort of stuff, is our concept of what efficiency and productivity is. So productivity, if we just talk about that, literally refers to the measurement of output. So what you churn through. So there's a lot of buzzwords at the moment where it's like, you need to be really productive to get all the things done. And, I see business owners all the time that say to me, I just need to do more and then I'll be able to. I just need to get this done and then I can make that step. And in actual fact, productivity is what is making this harder for people. If you're spending all your time on the output, doesn't mean you're necessarily doing it efficiently. So I want to talk about efficiency for a second. Efficiency means that you're able to accomplish something with the least amount or least waste of time and effort. So how often do we find that we are doing something that actually takes us hours? An example would be our own bookkeeping. That, if that's not something that you particularly love in your business or is a natural affinity that you have, you'd spend hours trying to get that done, or you'd put it off and it would take you 3 times longer than what you'd need to do. As business owners wearing multiple hats, this is happening all over the place in our business. And what I would really love for you to do is to consider the view of productivity through the lens of efficiency. So how can we get more output with less wasted time or less effort, or the same output with less time and effort? And I would really love for you to take a moment after this, or whenever you have the time, to consider the things that you're doing in your business where you're trying to be productive, but you're not particularly efficient, and how making these small changes could give you back the time to then find that support or do the additional things in your business. For me, it was a very big shift that I had to make, because I was sure I just had to do more, when in actual fact it was in the becoming leaner in how you do things, whether it is in time or money, that with the same outcome that really made a difference to things in my small business and for my clients. The next thing I'd like to go through is Parkinson's law. Now, you're probably thinking, well, what has this got to do with things? Parkinson's law it's a universal law that basically says that whatever work time we have is what is going to be filled. So if we have 10 hours to get something done, it's generally how long something takes. So for example, it doesn't mean that you're working for 10 hours, but you might procrastinate, or you might not do that thing and you might touch it for a little bit and then put it down again. And then because you've got all of this time available to you, when in actual fact, if you only gave yourself 2 hours for that thing, then you'd probably complete it in that time without a problem, because it'd be concentrated effort. And so what I would really love to ask you and for you to explore is, where is this working for you or against you at the moment? What I've learned about myself is that I have to put tasks really close to an actual meeting that I have with someone so that I can't move it. Because, you know, if I know that I have an additional hour, well, then I'm going to faff about and do a couple of other things, or someone's going to ask something and I'm going to jump over there and do that. And then 3 hours later, I'm back at the same spot that I'm doing that. So if you can, I'd love to hear from you in the chat as to, do you identify with this, first of all? And can you see where this might be working against you or for you in your business? Now, I would also love to take a moment to reflect a little on this and ask you a couple of questions. Where have you been focused on productivity versus efficiency? And where can you identify any areas that you could immediately tighten up to better utilize Parkinson's law? And feel free to bring that into conversation if you'd like to, or if you have any questions around it. I know that Pauline, you said that it definitely works against or for you. I know for me that if I'm not conscious of Parkinson's law, then I am leaking time all over the place. Awesome. All right. Did anyone, Candice, please feel free to unmute. I'm very happy.
I was like, there's no one talking. Do we just come in and have a go? How are
Absolutely.
you?
Hi.
I'm Candice. I'll put my video on. I don't mind. There's only a few of us here. Hang on. Seem fairly cash. Is that working? Doesn't really matter.
Yes, I can see you.
Oh, well, hey, how are you? Yeah, it's very cold here right now. I love this. The reflection on time is a huge thing that I always feel like I just don't have. Like, don't have the time to think about the time I don't have. And that's probably like the worst thing that anyone can have in a situation like mine. Sitting here trying to reflect on what it is I could improve on, and it could quite literally be like everything. However, when you suddenly start to reach this point in your business where it's starting to really take off, all of a sudden what you thought you were managing well before, you really weren't.
Yes.
So efficiency and product mindset, like that's a great way to look at it. And I guess that sort of takes off that little bit of pressure, thinking, oh, okay, so it's not as bad as you think it is. It's just a little tweak in your mindset to be able to make sure that you can put the efficiency and rearrange how you will complete said tasks or clean up areas that need improving in the area. So yeah, I thought that's what I wanted to say. Thank you.
No, I love that. And yeah, I would love to explore a little bit more about your business, if that's okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you mind telling me a little bit about what you do and where your biggest challenge is when it comes to either the mindsets that I've brought up or Parkinson's law, productivity, efficiency?
All right. Just a mini little elevator pitch background. So I run a wool felt craft business. So basically, I sell craft products online. So it's a textile fabric that is is just a lot of fun. It's behind me covered up because, I like to keep things, if it's not being in use, it's got to be tucked away. So, light doesn't make it fade. But yeah, so it's an online business we've been running for 7 years now. And in these past 12 months, not only have I given myself a very nice little income, but it has started to grow so much so that I have no idea where we're going to fit. Like, I feel like my desk space has just gone from a little bit like a 9-meter long room. Yeah. So, we're thinking about, where do we move? How do we expand this without compromising on our services? And that's one of the things that, where efficiency comes into it, is that I'm worried that we really want to keep the same sort of casual, loving customer service, like that all good country love customer service, because every customer matters. And, we offer really personal touch. And as we grow, we're getting more and more customers, and we don't want to lose that, and whilst we're getting busier, my biggest pain is that, I can't get in touch with my clients as much, because that was the one reason why we grow so well, is because I was able to understand their needs and their pains and all of that sort of thing. So not knowing too much about the law you mentioned before, the probably one of the things that I've always thought is, especially with time, I definitely love the idea of restricting it and saying, if it's going to take you this much time to do it, give yourself, a little bit less, or try and rearrange it in a way that, have more of an idea of how much time you're going to actually need to do it. I really love using the Pomodoro, like that. That is my favorite thing. If I nearly laughed because I actually have on 2 other tabs, I'm doing accounting as we speak. Like, and when you said that before, I seriously laughed out loud. That was, and pausing it to come into this session was really funny, and to think that that's what I was doing before, and I have been doing it since about 6 o'clock this morning, because I haven't done it since July. So I've been putting it off and putting it off and putting it off, and finding problems, and can't remember what this charge was for. And you're just like, Candace, why did you not just do it an hour in a week? I bet you could have done it, and saved yourself all of this heartache. So yeah, definitely. I'd definitely like to look into this law a bit more. I mean, you've given a brief sort of outline, but yeah, I hope I can sort of understand, and maybe that could give me more of an insight to how we could, even just myself, pass on other tasks that the girls could do. Hopefully that could loosen things up my end, and release that pressure, and try and put my time to better use, really. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I'm really happy to dive further into the Parkinson's law, because we can even look at it as a calendar. Do you do calendar blocking at all?
Oh, absolutely. I was in a massive program last year, and it was definitely, because it added about like 20 hours of work a week on top of what I already was doing. So if I didn't block out that time specifically to do it, when we went to the actual one-on-one, face-to-face workshops, I would be terribly behind, and not only that, terribly behind on my own work. So yeah, I really appreciate blocking. Like I block out, even, it sounds awful, but I block out for family as well. So that way I can make sure I spend that time wisely, so it's not encroaching on the business, and vice versa. So, because of course, got kids.
Absolutely.
And trying to balance it all out.
I completely understand, and really you're utilising Parkinson's law really well. If you're calendar blocking, you're literally saying, I have this time for this activity. I can do this then. I even have break blocks, because if I don't put those in, it doesn't happen.
Oh, I don't do that. I probably, my break blocks usually occur when the kids are in bed.
Yeah, but isn't that interesting? Where could you possibly leverage Parkinson's law to be able to add in even 1 or 2 little breaks outside of that? Because
Yeah.
You're basically saying, well, when that happens, then I can have a break. But you could probably have more of a break at some point.
No, that's true. Because the worst part about setting yourself tasks and times, it's having the mindset to do it is one thing. You know, sorry, the task being completed is one thing. Having the mindset to actually do it is another.
Exactly.
You know, I've gone off and made cups of teas and taken the dog outside and you know, made a couple of phone calls in between all of this, trying to, you know, balance the accounts. So yeah, a lot of distractions, or you know, we usually call them not distractions. I can't think of it, but yeah, like, you know, sewing distractions and that sort of thing. Like, oh, look at something pretty over there.
But that's also because I believe you're probably working outside of your zone of genius.
What does that? What?
I'm in lockdown and my son's just escaped, so I'm sorry about the little highs in the background.
You don't need to apologise. That mine, I sent mine off in agistment. They're at Bribey Island at the moment, so it's all good.
So yes, I did have everything closed off, but you know what kids are like. I would say that if Parkinson's law is not working for you, it's because you're trying to do something that you actually don't want to do.
Oh yeah. Like that is the truth. Like I know that there are people out there. In fact, Susie and I have had quite a few conversations on this. There are people out there who actually do this sort of thing for a living and are great at it. I just haven't found them. So, and I'm very tight with my budget, you know, and definitely, you know, when things are going so well, I don't want to be adding costs. I know I'm going to have to get to a point where I will have to pay someone to do certain roles, but we're just on that cusp of, you know, business is growing, we are making money, but then with all of that growth there comes in all these added expenses, and I don't want to be sacrificing the profit for something that, yes, I can do on my own if I manage it better. So yeah,
I love this. You have just identified everything I've just shared.
Yeah.
No, I love it. And you're in the right place. This is exactly what we're talking about. And further into this session, I'm going to delve into the deciding and that sort of stuff. And in session 2, we can talk about how we make this actually happen when we're on a budget. But what you just said around the time to be able to do things and the budget to be able to do things, Parkinson's law still applies with that. So I thank you so much for being our amazing case study today.
Oh, well, gee, thanks. No problems. I'll leave you get back to your talk.
Thank you so much, Candice, for sharing. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
All right. The next thing I'd like to move on to is culture. And let's just talk about the definition. What is culture? It is the sum of attitudes, customs, beliefs that distinguish one group of people from another. And the reason why I'm giving you this definition is that you can see that this is not just a simple thing. It is built up in many different ways. It can be, you know, in art that we have shows a type of culture. If we take it to apply it to our businesses, culture starts well before you hire someone, and that culture is then transmitted in everything that you do. So Candice shared that her main source that she really wants to hold on to is that personal touch. That is the culture, or a big part of culture in your business. That's what makes you successful, and that you're doing this by contacting people, by, you know, putting the love into what it is that you do. And I want to just really for you all to understand what culture means, not from the terminology of, you know, culture as staff or as a big business, but as ourselves personally, and how we show up to our business and how we embody this. And what it really comes down to is our values. So I'd really love to take just a really small amount of time to consider what your values are. So my values, as an example for you in my businesses and when I'm working with my clients, is growth over comfort. So we have to be willing to get out of the comfortable and into the discomfort for the growth in the long term. So that may not be the same value that you hold as highly as I do, and there's no right or wrong. And that's a really big thing that I want to be able to share today, is that there is no right or wrong when it comes to our values and our culture. You can identify what those are for yourself and for your business. And if you're clear on that, then finding the right person through looking through the lens of values and culture means that your next hire, your next support is much easier to find. Another example is personal responsibility. In my line of work, I can't be responsible for someone's business. They have to be responsible for their outcomes, for what they're hoping to achieve. And that's something I will do everything in my power to support that person, to give them the tools, the resources, whatever they need. But if they don't have that personal responsibility, then we can't work together. The same applies for anyone that's on my team. They take personal responsibility for any task or outcome or anything to do with my business that they're a part of. And the same thing with generosity and kindness. That is a big value, and that is part of the culture that is me, that is my business. And if we don't have that, or if the person working with me doesn't have that, then there is no way this is going to work and that they're going to be the right person for me. There may be other things. It may be continuous improvement. It could be any sort of value. And I really would love for you to either share in the chat, or if you want to unmute yourself and let me know. It'd be really great for you to identify that. And it doesn't have to be big and audacious. It can be simple but meaningful. It can be any word that represents to you what you stand for, what is a non-negotiable for you and your business. Because if we are unclear and don't have the clarity in this respect, it's very hard to find the right people to bring into our business. And it's very difficult for us to live and articulate our culture and what we stand for if we are unsure. And it's very ingrained in how we live anyway. We tend to go about our lives doing these things without actually realizing that this is something that's very important. So I wanted to just touch on that right now so that we could have this as one of the foundational pieces to consider where you are in your business and how this might help you to identify if a person is right when it comes to that next step for you. The reason why culture matters as well is that it guides action. It increases motivation, it fosters connection, it improves retention, it creates engagement, and it influences decisions. So you can see right away how important this is to you and your business. If even for yourself, if you're aware of what your culture and your values are, then you know what the next action piece is for you. You're motivated to to get up in the morning and continue in your business and do the things that feel hard. You find other people that like your product or service, that connect with what it is that you stand for and what you're providing. It means that anyone that you bring on as a client or as a team member are likely to stay because they understand your culture. It is something that makes sense to them. And it creates engagement from a public perspective as well. The fact, again, Candice, thank you for sharing. I'm going to use you as an example. The personal connection is a big value and is a big thing, part of your culture. So therefore the engagement that you get from your clients is huge because they align with that. And it influences their decision to buy from you or to talk to you or to take that next step. And so I would really love it if you could consider these steps here that I've outlined and how this is true for your business. And if anyone has any questions or they want to make any comments, please feel free. Pauline, if you have anything that you want to jump in with, go for it.
I was just going to say that I think retention is the big thing with that connection and engagement. And we know that it costs a lot more to bring a new person into a business, customer and staff member, than it does to actually just retain the ones you have. And I think that's something that a lot of the businesses we work with we could put a lot more effort into the retention side of it, because I think that's a lot of value that you can get out. Lots of great strategies too. And now with social media communication being so
Prevalent,
easy.
yes.
Yeah, prevalent. I wouldn't say easy per se, time consuming, but has lots of value in it.
Absolutely. And it makes it so much easier to identify what it is you're going to talk about as well. If you're clear on your culture, or you're clear on what your values are, then you've got about 20 million posts right there that you can talk about. And I know that I struggle with social media and what am I going to put out there? But if I come back to this, it's like, oh, okay, I can start to connect. And then, you know, it's retaining those clients and there's engagement. So it works in a multitude of ways. Indeed, but I love that. Yeah, retention's a really big one. Now, as we spoke about efficiency, I'm going to bring it back in on this level as well. So the power when there is efficiency in your culture is that everyone can embody the value. And what I mean by that is that if they understand your culture and that efficiency is important within that, then it creates cost savings. It can reduce decision fatigue. It again, retention, that word's back again. It reduces resource waste, which are all things that we spoke about earlier. It fosters autonomy. It improves team morale. It gives a clearer focus. It means faster and quality growth, and it improves the quality of life for everyone. Where I see the biggest problems coming into the growth of businesses is that there isn't this clear culture and that people's values aren't aligned. So therefore efficiency goes out the door. How many times have you potentially experienced in your life, not even your business, that you think that you give someone something to do and then they come back and ask you all these questions and the thing doesn't get done, or they do it 20% versus 100% and that sort of thing. And it's very much tied back to this, is that they are not aligning with you in some way, or they don't fully understand. And this works for cost savings. It works as a manager to reduce your fatigue that you have around making the decisions for everyone that you were supposed to bring on to make your life easier, and it's not. It also means that the person's like, right, I know what we stand for. I know what we're trying to achieve. So therefore they're like, okay, I've got this, I can go and do that. And it gives a clearer focus to everyone that you're on the same path, rather than everyone doing their own thing within your business, thinking that they're working towards the outcomes, but are not as clear. And, you know, it just means that everyone's a lot happier because you're on the same page. So I'd really just want to take a moment for you to jot down where this potentially is coming up for you, or areas that you might be concerned about if you were to bring someone in.
Can I just ask a question there?
Sure.
You may be about to cover this, but how would a small business particularly capture and communicate their culture?
Okay, great. So the biggest thing that I have implemented with my clients is to just do a brain dump. And what I mean by that is whatever comes to your mind about who you are, what you stand for, the things that you do in your business, just write them down. No right, wrong. It may make no sense, but to get it out. The biggest problem that I see, or the struggle that's there, is that you're like, it has to be precise and perfect and defined and out there and clear. But it doesn't have to be to start with. Just put something down, and then from there you can literally get a highlighter and go, yeah, that is a non-negotiable, and this is what I stand for. And there may be many, and then from that you can go, okay, what is, like, if I was to rank these things, what's the ranking of that? And then from there you can start to put that into a sentence. Once you're clearer about it, the next thing I'd actually say is do a video of yourself talking about these things, because not that I'm saying you need to share this with anyone, but it's going to help you get the clarity around what is your culture, what are your values, and the things that, you know, you might have highlighted are probably not as important as what you're starting to talk about. It's a really great way to work through that process, and that it can evolve with you over time.
But I find that when you ask someone what their values are, they are often subconscious.
Yes.
And it's not until you sort of spend quite a bit of time looking at them and trying to work them out. It's actually, I think, easier sometimes to identify what your value isn't.
Yes.
Rather than what it is. is you look at the things, you reflect on the experiences that you have, and you think, I really didn't like that. You're very clear about what you didn't like, but you're not so clear about what you would have liked instead. One of the, I think, really good questions to ask as a business owner is if this behavior is one that you would sack a person over. That sounds terrible, but you know, if it's a behavior that you think, I don't want people that have that behavior, you can start to look at the values that link to that. So if somebody has a poor customer interaction, uses the wrong language, you know, you can train somebody, but there's to a certain point where you think, well, actually, that is a skill set that I would hire or fire over. It's therefore one of your values, that customer centeredness or whatever it is that had that that gut reaction.
Absolutely, and that's a great way to look at it. The other thing that we could probably do right now, if you have a piece of paper, just draw a circle in the middle of it. And within that circle, what do you want in your business? And outside of that circle, what don't you want? And you may find it easier to identify, as Pauline has said, the things that you don't want than the things that you do want. And or you may find the opposite. Whatever comes for you is what's going to be right in this moment. But I'd really like, let's take a moment and do that, because that is the starting point as to where your culture can be and what your values are without putting these words to it. It can be as simple as, what don't I want to enter into my business, or what don't I want to do? But be really specific. So don't put things like, you know, inside the circle, freedom, because like freedom to me is very different to freedom to you. Define it. Is it only working, you know, 10 to 2 every like 3 times a week, or is it being able to go on holidays? So be as specific as possible. And if anyone would like to share, I'd love to hear it. If not, you're more than welcome to do this over and over again, and it helps you redefine where you are and what's working for you and what's not, and how much your business is either in the circle or outside of the circle right now, which links to the hiring. If you've got a whole heap of stuff that's outside of your circle that you're doing at the moment, and you're trying to hire someone to do those things, it's not going to work, because you're not going to love it, and it's not really part of your vision and culture and values. This is something that I do on a regular basis, myself, but also with my clients. It may be initially you do it on a monthly basis because you're not finding it so easy to write these things down, and then it might move out to quarterly, 6 monthly, each year. It's a good sort of honing tool to help you really define, you know, how aligned things are for you. Awesome. And I just want to take a moment right now to remind you that no one size fits all. And the biggest thing that I've experienced and what I've seen with my clients is that they tend to look outside of themselves to, you know, someone that's doing something in a particular way, or, you know, culture is this growth over comfort, but it's really not what you stand for, but you're trying to implement it in your business and that sort of thing. You have full permission to make this as authentically you as you can. And once you approach it from this perspective, everything else feels a lot easier. And of course, I've got another reflection, because I can't help myself, and I think these are really good questions to ask, is what words make up your current culture? Do you feel you're actively embodying them right now? Are you committed to more efficiency? Will you actively work it into how everyone operates, once, you know, if you have a team or once you have someone working for you? And these are questions that you can come back to once you take that step, or upon reflection of where you currently are. And feel free to unmute yourself and share if you'd like to, or pop anything into the chat. But these are questions. If you can write them down, the slides will also be given to you, so you can come back to this, put this in your toolkit. It's going to really help you to define, you know, as Pauline asked, what does culture actually mean for the person? And Are we clear on what embodying means? It means that we're living it. It's just second nature. All right, now we're getting into the technical stuff. One of the concepts that I'd like to bring into today's session is the 4D mix. Within the Clockwork book, there are 4 things that happen when we bring on a team, that when we decide we need support and that sort of thing, and they're 4 Ds. The first is doing. This is the actual work. Within the business, we need to be doing things. So it's either that we're creating that product, or the services need to happen so that the clients are happy with the outcome and that sort of thing, or it's actually executing that task. This is something that absolutely needs to happen in your business, no matter what. The next D is deciding. And what I would love to explain here, and this is a different concept to probably anything that you've probably heard of. You've most likely heard of delegate, just delegate. What happens though is that we tend to get stuck in the deciding of things. So we're used to doing the doing, we're now moving into getting the support, and we are going to assign a task. But the problem with that is that we've assigned the task to someone, but they don't get to make the decisions. They're not solely responsible for that outcome. You haven't spoken to them about what the outcome is, like why do they need to do this task. An example of that would be, again, let's say I'm working with my team and I say, can you please send this email? They'll go and send the email, or they'll come back and they'll be like, oh, okay, so what do you want the email to say? And I'm like, oh, I would like the email to say, thanks for reaching out, please do this. And they're like, oh, okay, I've sent that, and now what now? So they keep coming back to you to get the next piece of information or the next task so that they continue that thing. Whereas if I had said to them, this client needs to understand our process of how we work so that they can book in a call and get their first session going, then that person knows, okay, I need to send an email. This is the thing that I don't even need to tell them the tasks, because they understand the outcome and that they're solely responsible for getting that outcome. So therefore, they can do it, and they're not coming back to you. And this is where this first step happens when we're new to hiring as well, is that we tend to think that, well, I'm going to hire someone, give them some tasks, and then you're going to feel better. But yet they come back to you all the time with these questions, and you're spending even longer answering them and training them, and they keep coming back, and you're like, but I've covered this with you. Why are you asking me the same thing? And because you understand that the outcome is clear, but they don't. And so we end up in this trap and cycle of deciding things for people. And that becomes such a mental drain on us that, that's why people then go, I'd never want a team, because I actually got no support and I got nothing done. And that's because you're in the deciding rather than the delegating. And the delegating is different to the deciding. You're delegating that responsibility and all tasks, and as I explained before, the outcome. So when you go to bring someone on, I want you to be really clear about what that outcome is that they need to achieve. And you can outline the tasks for them if you like, but you'll find that you can stop doing that a lot sooner, because they're responsible for finding out the best way, the best process, the best task list for that outcome. And then the 4th D within business is the designing. And this is where a lot of us business owners would love to be spending more time. And that is creating that future, that vision, that big picture, the workflows, the efficiencies, the new products and services. And I know it's very easy to go back to that first D of the doing and not have the time for the designing. And if you don't highlight or understand that there's these 4 areas within your business, and every business has some level of this. But what we're doing as a sole operator a lot of the time is doing all of these things. We are doing it, we're deciding, we're delegating, maybe that one thing in social media to someone, and then we're, hoping to get the time to work on the business, not in the business. What I would really love to do is show you the ideal company 4D mix. And again, if we go back to that slide previously, I said no size fits all. This is just to give you an idea of the ideal mix is that 80% of a business is in the doing. You have to be able to get your services out there to be able to deliver the products that you are advertising and that sort of thing. So that is a big part of your business and always will be. It doesn't mean you need to be the one doing it. Then you've got the designing. So the designing is about 15%. The delegating is less than that, which is mind-blowing when I first learned this concept. What we really want is to have a very, very small percentage of our time deciding things for people, spending more time, so about 8%, delegating to people. Then we can spend that 15% of time designing the next step for our business, whilst all of that doing can happen. I do want to bring in a 50. Sorry, go ahead, Pauline.
I was just going to ask Laura, is that graph that you just had there, is that representative of your whole business, or
Yes.
is that the business owner?
This is the whole business.
Right. So a business owner might have a different 4D mix.
Correct.
To the actual business. So obviously the reason you have a business is to get stuff done. You don't spend all your time. So, but as a business develops over time, the owner or the business operator's role, the mix would change for them.
Correct. And you get to decide as well that really the doing may actually be a lot less than what we think, because we need to spend more time in the delegating. And this is the overall from a company perspective, but then how you spend your time as the owner is very different. And what you do initially would be a lot of the doing and very little of the delegating, and that would move over time.
Yes, or the nature of your doing might change. So it might, if you're a shoemaker, it might go from making the shoes doing to building to the business development. It's still a doing, but it has a more strategic outcome. Would that be fair to say?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
No worries. I will bring in the 50, and this is something that we just do, and that is distraction. It's that shiny object syndrome, the things that we think are going to help us to grow or to have that impact or to make that decision or change that business to help us not feel as stuck or things as painful, is that we distract ourselves. And so we don't want the D in any of that mix, that fifth D, but it is life. And so I would love you to identify what distractions you possibly have in place that are stopping you from utilizing those other Ds in the doing, the deciding, the delegating, and the designing, because we're very, very good at distracting ourselves, whether that's in the positive or the negative. So I just wanted to acknowledge that we're human and that there are distractions that come into play. But if we can be aware that this is something that can impact on our ideal business mix, yeah, social media is huge distraction. Like, how many times do you find yourself scrolling and you're like, why am I still here scrolling? And this is coming back to what Pauline asked, and this is, what's your ideal 4D mix? Like, what would you like in your business? Are you aware of where you're spending your time? And, you know, and I think that's the biggest thing, is that our assumption of where we're spending our time versus where we're actually spending our time when you time track. And yes, I know time tracking is not fun and very, very annoying. And I'm not saying you need to do it all the time, but if you haven't time tracked for a period of time, I'd do it for a week. And it can be as simple as jotting down the main areas that you're doing. Like it could be the doing, it could be the delegating, it could be the designing, or it could be the actual tasks, so that you can understand how you're actually doing business for yourself. And then you can stop time tracking, because I know that that's not fun for everyone, but it's going to give you a really great insight as to where you're spending your time in the business, so that you can answer that question. What would you like in your business? And consider what your ideal 4D mix is for your business. As Pauline said, you know, that could look really different based on where you are in your business and how old or young, and you know, we pivot and we evolve as people, and therefore we want to change something in our business. And so it really is important to consider how you'd like to be spending your time and how you could possibly put them into these categories, because it's going to help you to understand the next, like what changes need to be made potentially, or where you can get someone to do things that are taking up the biggest amount of time in your business that you don't necessarily need to be doing. So if there's any questions, then please let me know, or if there's any comments, very happy to delve further into that. Is this making sense for everyone as well? Even if you put a yes or no, or maybe in the chat, that would be great. I'm happy to dive deeper, but I also understand that there's lots of information that I'm imparting here. Awesome, fantastic. Now we're going to go on to the QBR, and you're probably thinking, say what? Basically, as part of Mike's research for his book, he was looking for an organization that was the most efficient organization on the planet. And he spent a lot of his time looking at businesses, trying to find the most efficient business in the world that did things in the best way and in the most efficient way, so that it was running without the owner, and couldn't find anything. But instead, he found bees. And it sounds weird, and I'll explain a little bit further what we mean by bees. What he found is that the bee ecosystem was the most efficiently run organization on the planet. And it came down to identifying the queen bee role within that, in the bee ecosystem, was the most important thing. Her role was to lay the eggs and continue to procreate. And so every other bee within that ecosystem did their tasks and roles and jobs to ensure that she could do that one role. It sounds a bit crazy, but stick with me. And if we can implement this in our business, it's going to make such a difference. And I'd like to just highlight one thing. There is this word role, not person, not task, role. What we need to identify for ourselves in our business so that we can be as efficient and be able to have a business running as well as possible with the right people is to identify the most important role, so that you can swap the person doing it. It could be you, it could be someone else, but you identify that one big role that without that, everything just kind of falls apart. Let's go into a little bit deeper. I'm going to give you some examples, some real life examples, not based on bees. So we have some different examples here, and I'm going to talk about two different concepts. One is the big promise, and the other is the queen bee role. And one thing that I'll also say is that you can have businesses within the same industry where their queen bee role and their big promise is very different. And I have put the examples here. Let's start with Mike. He's an author. His big promise is to make complex business ideas simple and actionable. That's his big promise. So his queen bee role within his business is to write books. Everything, and if you know anything about Mike, he's quite an interesting guy. He has many other business ventures. He has multiple things going on, but his most important role in his business as Mike Michalowicz, the author, is to write these books that are easy to digest, empowering, and deliver results. That is, so he does everything. Everything that he does is for that role. So he has the people in place that allow him to go and take all of the time that he needs to be able to write the books, to have this impact and deliver on this big promise. Another example is the CrossFit gyms. We've got two different gyms here. If we look at CrossFit gym number one, their big promise is to provide family-like community to achieve fitness goals. So what is their queen bee role? Their queen bee role is to have weekly community events. Everything that happens in that business to be able to provide on their big promise for their customers is to have these weekly community events. It doesn't mean that the, cleaning of the gym doesn't happen. It doesn't mean that the emails don't get responded to, but it means that the whole team is aligned to understand that whatever they're doing is to have this function, this queen bee role happening so that they can deliver on their big promise. And as I said earlier, that you can have the same business in the same industry, but delivering on different things. This second CrossFit gym, their big promise is to get you competition ready. How different is that to the other one? To get you, their big promise to their customers is to get them competition ready. So therefore, their queen bee role is to create competition ready programming. So they spend all of their time ensuring that the one thing that is always happening in their business is that queen bee role of competition ready programming so that they can deliver on their promise to get their clients and customers competition ready. Is this making a little bit more sense now with the examples that I've shown? So let's see how we can look at our own queen bee promises and big promises in our business. So what is the big promise at the center of your organization? Let's take a moment to really consider that. What is the big promise at the center of your organization? And if you're clear on that, feel free to chuck it into the chat. If you're unsure, I'm very happy to work through this with you. Creation, inspiration, love it. Awesome. So that's your big promise, creation and inspiration, love it. And so what is the most important activity in your business then? What's your secret sauce, is what I like to call it, in your business? And you may not be able to answer these right away, and that's okay. I'm going to do an activity with you shortly that's going to help make this a little bit clearer, but these are questions that I'd love you to spend some time on. And how can you ensure you deliver on that promise? And that's a big one. So once you know what your big promise is at the center of your business and organization, how can you ensure that you deliver on this promise? And you meaning your business, it could be someone else. Again, it's a role. Another example that I'll give you is, it's an American example, is the Savannah Bananas. They are a regional softball team that are actually very bad at softball, but their biggest queen bee role is to be customer centered, to bring entertainment. And so, yes, they need to obviously play softball. They need to spend the time training and that sort of thing. But what their biggest thing that they have to do each week is come up with new ideas. So this is the one softball team in the US that is always sold out. And it's not because they're winning. They're not winning at all. It's because they're always entertaining the crowd. There's always new things that they're doing. And their big promise is to always bring entertainment. So therefore, they ensure they deliver on this promise by coming up with new ideas. They have a weekly meeting where everyone comes together and they just come up with new ideas for this. And so I would love for you to really take some time on this, because it's going to make your life so much easier when it comes to finding the best person or people to support you to deliver on this promise.
Can I just ask, Laura, what is the difference between the vision and mission of your business and the queen bee role?
Great. So the vision and mission of your business is an overarching motivation, really. It's what keeps you going. It's the things that are meaningful for you. It's how the team continues to get up together every day and do those things. The queen bee role is the function within the business that means that the promise or what it is that you're selling or offering is delivered on time and time again. So they're a bit different, but it's a great question.
They seem very related.
Yeah, they are related for sure.
So one's a philosophy and one's an actual functional role.
Correct.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. And another example is FedEx. Their big promise is to ensure that their parcels are delivered on time every time. And so they use multiple different contractors and ensure that everyone is really aware of turnover. And if they don't, they actually have to pay back the person that paid for their services. So it can be very, very functional when it comes to the Queen Bee role and promise. All right, we're going to do an exercise. I did say we're going to get practical with what it is that we're doing, and that is working out what our Queen Bee role actually is. So if you could write down your big promise on a piece of paper. So what is it that you promise to deliver or be or provide in your business? Give you a moment to ponder that. Write that down. And now, based on that, I'd love you to write down, just in, it could be a list or it could be however it comes, the 6 most important activities that you believe need to happen to deliver this promise. So it could be responding to emails in a timely manner. It could really be anything, but the most important, 6 most important activities. Let me know once you've got them written down. Feel free to take your time. For those watching the replay, you might want to pause or fast forward. All right, now what I'd like you to do, once you've got the 6 most important activities down, is to get rid of 2. Take 2 away. Can you still deliver on that promise if you take 2 of them away? And what I would recommend you doing outside of this is getting Post-it notes so that you can move things around rather than cross out and that sort of thing. But for now, it's a bit harder when we are in a Zoom room. These 6 activities, you get rid of 2. Can you still deliver on that promise? The idea is that you want to keep taking these important activities away until you have 1 remaining. Yes, they're all going to need to happen at some point in your business. But for example, if we take responding to emails away, that's not going to impact my big promise of delivering results to my clients. I deliver results to my clients by showing up and giving them the tools and resources. I don't need to respond to that email, so I take that away. And I can still deliver on that promise. Then the next important activity that you feel is necessary, if you took that away, do you still think you can deliver on that promise? Then you take the next one away. Are you still able to deliver on that promise? And this may not be something that happens really easily right now, but you will find that if you're struggling, you may not have picked the most important activities because they may not be where you spend the majority of your time. And so I'd really love to ensure that you get some time to yourself, even if it's 30 minutes, and really spend some time putting these important activities together, taking them away, and can you still deliver on that promise? Once you get down to that last piece, that last important activity, that is likely to be your Queen Bee role. That is what is essential to your business to be able to deliver on your big promise. And therefore, when you're deciding on what needs to happen It is to protect that role, that activity, so that you can deliver on your promise. So you can look at all of the things that you might be doing or your team might be doing. Is this working towards that one important activity or role?
That's no easy task, Laura.
It's not an easy task. And I would love to spend like a session just on that.
Yeah, that really sucked, hey, because I'm halfway in the middle of writing, and I got down to like 4 and about writing through my 5th, and then you turned around and said, now take away 2. How am I supposed to add a couple more when I know they're going to be taken away?
Yes. Well, even if you have 4, on those 4, if you took 1 away, can you still deliver on the promise?
Yeah, that's going to be the fun part. I like the post-it idea.
Yeah.
Writing them all down and then, putting them in order as to, what you believe is most important, etc. That will be a hard choice.
And that's it. And is it an emotional thing or is it a logical thing?
See, for me, I've often wondered whether, is it because the reason why we are so successful is because I'm emotionally involved, or is the emotional more, if I don't do it, they're not going to like me. That old
Good
saying.
question. Yep.
Yes.
And this would be a great activity. Then really kind of spend the time doing this, because your emotional investment would be your point of difference. But I wouldn't say that it's your queen bee role.
No, I definitely, that's not on there, as on the list, but it's definitely how I feel a lot.
Yep. It's great that you can highlight that though, because if you could zoom out and kind of go, well, where could I possibly be impacting my business with that lens on?
Yes.
I think this is also a good activity as well, because I think over a period of time, your ideas might change.
Yes.
Your ideas of what is central as you sort of deep dive or dig a little bit further. I might see something that I do as essential to the business because I can't be separated from it.
Yes.
but the more that you sort of think about it, I think it'll come down in layers that you might find you'll be moving some of those sticky notes around a little bit.
Absolutely. And it is something that will evolve over time, but also it depends how far along in your business you are as well. Because at the beginning of a business, you're doing things while trying to define who you are and what you stand for and why you're doing it and what it is that you offer and that sort of thing. So this particular exercise will feel really overwhelming, and you can just choose any important activity and focus on the one that you find that is the most important. And if it's not actually making a huge difference, that's okay. Like, it means it's probably not your queen bee role, and you can go back and you can review it again. It's a really great alignment tool as well.
Yes, I have done this with a few clients, and it's always I've had to revisit it because the idea of throwing out roles, throwing out, is difficult. Yeah. It's difficult, especially when each role contributes to the outcome.
Absolutely. And that's the thing to remember, is that each role still needs to happen, but then especially if you don't have the time or money to invest in all of the things all at once, you can find the person that can do that main important role and delegate that first.
Yep. Yep.
Awesome. The other thing as well is to be really clear on the distinguishing features of the queen bee role. So is it an activity? And we do have worksheets that were given out, and you can go through and do this. Is it an activity? If it is, what is it? If it's not a queen bee role. Can it be measured? And if it can be measured, how? If it can't be measured, it's not a queen bee role. Can we put more resources towards it? What resources? If you can't, if that's not going to make a difference, then it's likely not a queen bee role. Can you know when you are or are not doing it, and how? And is this above the scope of normal doing business, and how? So we do business, and this ties into what you're saying, Pauline, about the fact that these activities are all things that need to happen in the business, but that's just normal doing of the business. This is like a next step up from that, or it's outside of the normal scope of doing business. And if so, how? And is this a home run or in the ballpark? Like, we're basically saying, is this thing going to give us the home run, the big thing, the big outcome for our business, or are we just playing around in the ballpark, doing bits and pieces that are busy, keeping us busy, and we're ticking along, but we're not getting that home run? And these are all distinguishing features of the Queen Bee role. All right. I know this is a lot. What I am going to do is quickly dive into the capturing systems with ease, because once we have all of this defined, we then need to be able to capture the information for the tasks, the role, the support that we're requiring. And what I find tends to happen all the time is that we get stuck on we need to create a process, and it all needs to be documented. And I would say yes and no. It's how you document it that is important. If it's going to be a Word document that each person that does it has to update it all the time, it's always going to get out of date, always. And so what I would actually recommend is utilizing video when you can. And that is when you're doing something on your computer screen, then set that up and use Loom, for example, Loom, which is a free tool that is a Chrome extension that you can literally share your screen or your face or talk to it. The other thing that you can then do is from those videos is get them transcribed, so that if your team member doesn't learn from video, they can read it. But it's so much quicker as a business owner to do it via video rather than documenting that Word document that always needs to be updated every time you make a bit of a change in your business. And then there'll be other times where you need to record things that aren't on your computer. So how do you do that? One, you can take photos is one way, because often the photo speaks 1,000 words, but we also can video ourselves. So we can send up a little tripod showing how it is that you pack up your special products and that sort of thing, or it could be a service that you deliver, so a phone call that you might have with someone. You can record that as an example of what it is that you're doing. And it's very, very important for you to distinguish what it is that you do repetitively. So if you have to do something more than once, capture it. And then it makes it so easy to delegate, because as you're training someone, they can be recording it. They can be capturing that information. Anything that they do more than once, they have to capture. And so like with my team, I basically say, if you have to do this more than 2 times, I expect to see a video or something that's documented or captured. And it doesn't add additional time, whereas people don't capture their systems due to the fact that they think it's very time consuming. And the old way of doing it is, and it's never up to date. And then when you go to hire someone and delegate, the thing that was written actually isn't how you do it anymore, and it becomes a real pain. Whereas if you do it this way, it really makes a huge difference, and you're doing it at the time. And it makes it very, very easy then to update your systems, to update the way that you're doing things, to make those changes. Often businesses get stuck because they don't want to have to change the system, because it means they have to do all the documentation, and then that's going to be a really big project, and then that never gets done. And so they're hindering themselves because they don't want to be out of date when it comes to the capturing of those systems. And you can do this right now. It doesn't have to be when you get to a certain level. It doesn't have to be when you get to the time that you have, the opportunity to capture these things. You can do them as you're in the doing, which we so are when we're at that precipice of having to hire. Were there any questions, thoughts in there that we're wanting to explore, or is that pretty clear?
You know what? I absolutely love the idea of videoing. It's not that we change our processes often, but we have casual staff that sometimes might be required to do something that they may have done before, but they might not do it again for a month, and might require to review those processes, and just bringing up a video just to have a quick refresher instead of reading it. I mean, it's not that we're saying we're a lazy society that we can't read anymore, but you know, that's true to form with social media posts. They're more likely to engage with the video and understand it more than actually sitting there and reading the text. So that's definitely something that I'll be looking into. In fact, it'll probably reduce the stress of creating a proper document and labeling it and all that sort of thing.
Yep. Exactly, and that's exactly what I would do, is have a place where you can capture them so it's easy for them to find it, because that's the other difficulty when we have systems and that sort of thing. But it can be from your phone.
Cloud or something, couldn't you? Like if you have I've created Gmail accounts for them all so that they could, so we could get in contact if it was business related. So maybe
shared drive.
Yeah.
Yep. Super simple, and then you can upload that from your phone as well if you're literally taking a photo or something, or a video. It's about taking the friction out of capturing your systems and how-tos and that sort of thing, because if you don't want to do it as the business owner, then your staff members and hires are not going to do it, because they're going to feel the exact same way, and they don't have the same comprehension that you do around certain things, especially while they're getting up and running. And yeah,
I think video is also great for modeling the style that you want something done. So if it's an interaction, it's a really good way to capture tone and style that can't be captured in photographs and text. Just, a way of it's great role modeling.
Absolutely.
Are you going to touch on how that is transferred down, ownership of that?
Yeah, so I can definitely jump into that now. What happens there is that you'll find that you have a suite of videos that you've created, and then someone will watch those, and then it may just stop there. What needs to happen? So what I end up recommending, and what I do as part of my orientation with any new team member or support, is I outline what the expectation is around that. So the video needs to, if it's no longer being done, then the person who owns that outcome, going back to what I taught earlier in the session, if they own that outcome, then they own all of the tasks that go with that. And that includes capturing that system and making sure that it's up to date. So the thing that you've handed over continues to remain relevant and is not your responsibility to be able to go, oh, that's changed, I need to go and do this. It sticks with that person that you've delegated to, not decided for, delegated to. And it's very, very important to communicate that and make it very easy for them to understand what the tool is to be able to capture that, where it needs to go, why it's important, and that it becomes second nature for them.
I have to say, I think that's where the beauty of the system is, as that as a business owner, you don't have to maintain ownership of keeping all these different sets of information up to date.
Yes.
Particularly in an environment where you have staff turnover. When you lose a staff member, you lose so much knowledge. Skills aside, you lose a lot of knowledge that's stored in people's head. So I think this is a great way of keeping up to date with what that person was doing, so that it's your next person comes in and you basically have something to mediate that knowledge transfer over to the next person without you having to control that whole process again.
Absolutely, and that's key. The one thing that I want to jump to is the process mapping. So a lot of the time, we know that video is a good way to capture the system. We know that if we have this bank of information, it's going to be really helpful, and that transfer of knowledge will continue. But what do you do if you're really unsure of what it actually is that you do? because it's just so ingrained in what you do. And it's not with every single thing that you do that you need to do this, but creating a process map. So having that big outcome in the center, and potentially just having like lines, that's the word, as simple as it is. I've been talking for quite a while now. I'm like, what's that word? The lines that come out, and what is that next thing that has to happen? And really, to again, that brain dump that I was talking about, putting it into a bit of a map. And it doesn't have to be fancy, it doesn't even have to make sense to anybody else at this point in time. It's just really important for you to get that mapped out. So it really just means to map out the process in which the outcome is achieved. And you can either share that with someone if they're a higher level person, because they're like, okay, cool, I get it. Or you can then go, okay, I need to do a video on this. And then you can provide that. It's also a tool that you can share with your team so that they can continue to map out new things. So if they're fully responsible for a particular outcome and the business has pivoted or changed or wants to introduce something, then they can take the moment to map out that new process that could potentially change a bit from there to then video it. And it's just that next little step that really helps a person to untangle all of the things that might be the cogs that are working in the business or that particular task or process. And then once you're at that sort of step, once your business grows, I really, really highly recommend project management software. It's not necessary at the beginning, because if you had to do something, do videos. And start there, get comfortable with that. Don't jump into the project management software, because the software is only as good as the processes and procedures that you have clearly mapped out and in place. But when your business grows and as your team grows and that sort of thing, you will want a centralized system or software that allows for that to be the source of truth for your team. Because what will happen is everyone might be doing those videos, but they might be storing it in their own drive rather than the shared drive, or they might download it to their computer and not put it where they're supposed to. Whereas if everyone's working from within the project management software, it's all in one place, and it gives you a really good overview as to what it is that people are doing and that the system's actually being captured without you having to be that micromanager or time wasting that is checking that this happens. But it's not necessary from the very beginning, because change can be hard.
So can I ask then, what is the advantage of a software management, project management software over something just like a shared drive? So if you had SharePoint, I presume you're talking about an actual software program rather than just a drive.
Correct. So the drive works really well when you might have one or two people and you work in the same way and they follow the exact thing and you can follow everything that they do, and that becomes like the hub of information. But it's generally not done in a really clear, you have to click into folders and then you might need to go there, or someone might title it something else. And as that grows and that information bank grows, it gets very confusing, and then people don't utilize the systems that you have captured because they can't easily find it. Whereas the software, the project management software, something like Asana or Trello or ClickUp, it is a place where all of your system capturing can go. So it's a hub, but where you could be like, packing orders, and everything under this packing orders is there, and the people that it relates to can access it, and you can see what they're doing, and you can allocate particular tasks within that system to them, or potentially emails can be attached to things that are, or conversations that have happened can be captured in there. It's just that next step that makes it really easy for everyone to be moving in the same way, to be documenting things or accessing things in a really clear format. And it gives that overview to the business owner that having a drive may not, unless they go in and click a lot of the time.
So are you saying that the project management software sort of replicates the flow through your business, the
Yes.
way that a customer or a process or a production process would flow through your business rather
That's
than just
right.
having one spot.
And it stops the reinvention of things. So you can have 100 customers following this same process because it's clearly outlined and everyone's following that same flow, versus having 100 customers where you've got this video and then someone's tweaked something along the way and has made that little change, but it hasn't flowed through to the rest of the clients. So it's really great for that sort of thing.
Yeah, so it's systematizing the information.
Correct. And you can get free project management softwares. So if money is an issue or something that you're not wanting to yet invest in, so like Asana and ClickUp and Trello all have free versions of it that you know, are worthwhile maybe exploring, but I wouldn't spend the time in there yet if you're not yet capturing the systems to be able to delegate that information.
Okay.
All right, and then the last thing that we're going to talk about is people. Who is the best person to bring in your business? And what I want to talk about are the different options or the different people, so that you have a really clear idea as to what their function is. And the first person that I'm going to talk about is the employee. That's someone who gets hired, and you have to pay their wages, their superannuation, and if they're part-time, their accruals, their leave and that sort of thing. And they generally don't have their own business. They don't work for anybody else if you're offering them full-time work, and they are dedicated to you and your business. You can generally ask them to do a lot more in terms of, you know, this is the task at hand, go ahead and do it. Now jump over here and obviously treat your employees nicely. I don't mean it like that when I say it that way, but you have a lot more sort of control, but you've also got a lot more responsibility with an employee. So you do have to make sure you have the right systems in place to be able to pay payroll and to be dealing with the additional costs of annual and sick leave, and having the money set aside for superannuation, which all adds up. So the hourly rate of an employee is actually a lot more than what you think when you add on the annual leave that they'd taken a year, plus the superannuation payable and that sort of stuff. And whilst I have employees in some of my business, it wasn't the first thing that I did, because I wasn't sure as well if I had the work available for them. And I find that's also a fear and a challenge that a lot of people face, is it's just like, well, if I get an employee, what if I don't have enough work? And, you know, what if they don't like it? And they're good questions. The one thing that I will say is you can always employ a casual employee, which means that you can give them whatever hours you have. The downside to that is that they will probably go and work for someone else as well, because they're going to need more than the 5 hours a week that you can do, but you don't have to pay for annual leave or sick leave. Super is mandatory over a certain amount that you pay them. So if you're paying them $4.50 or more in the month, then super applies. If not, it doesn't. And there is a commitment required. And there is, you know, the need to ensure that they're happy within your business and can see a progression and that sort of stuff. And it may not be the first place that you go when it comes to that next support person. Are there any questions around the employee, or should I move on to the next type?
No, go.
Awesome. Love that. All right, so contractor. The contractor is someone that is a service provider. Let's call them a service provider rather than contractor. I find that when we define it as a service provider, it's a lot easier to understand the boundaries within that. So they generally own their own business, have an ABN, and work for multiple people and provide a service. So if you look at your queen bee role and realize that the most important activity is social media for you, and, you know, engagement and that sort of thing, then a contractor may be a really good option for you, because you can look for a service provider where their expertise is in that particular service. You can then have a conversation with them around whether it's an hourly rate or a fixed fee for an outcome. There's a lot more flexibility to you as the owner to kind of say, this is what needs to happen. This is the outcome. This is the return in investment that I'm expecting, which is, I'll pay you $100 and we need to get X, money back into the business, or it may not. But there are conversations that you can have. And they also get the flexibility of choosing when they work, how they work, and it's about the outcomes. And you can both cease services at any time. So if it doesn't work, then you can kind of say, thanks, this is great, no thank you. But they can do the same thing to you, which can be scary as a business owner, because if they get too busy, then what potentially happens? You've given a whole heap of work to this one person, and they're suddenly too busy to be able to service you in that way, that you could then potentially be left with a gaping hole. And so it's really important to understand these definitions so that you can identify particular roles within your business that could be either contractor or employee. There's pros and cons to everything. Nothing is the, quick fix, the easy option. It is, though, spending the time to get really clear about which is the best fit for the role that you're looking for. Another option is a virtual assistant, a VA. This is someone that is usually used to working online. You can get assistants as well, but we'll talk specifically about virtual assistants. And they are an online business manager, effectively. You have a multitude of options when it comes to VAs. They can be very specific in what they work in. So they might be a marketing VA, or they might be a copywriting VA, or they might be a financial VA where they do all your bookkeeping and that sort of thing. Or they could just be a generalist. So they're admin focused and they will do all of the things that you need doing, from answering emails to calendar management and that sort of stuff. A VA is a really great place to start, especially if you're busy in the doing of the tasks that are not the important activity for your Queen Bee role. So generally it is the calendar management, or it is the email responses, or it is the, answering of FAQs, or putting things on the website, or update on shipping, whatever it is that you don't need to be doing. It's important, but it's not the Queen Bee role. And you can get someone that is their jam. They love doing that. That's all they're going to do and spend their time doing it in. And you also then get the opportunity of either getting an Australian-based VA or an outsourced international VA. It's up to you as a business owner to decide where you sit ethically with that, as to whether you want to hire someone within Australia or whether you're happy to give work to someone overseas. And there's no judgment from me either way. Just want to kind of put that out there. There is a price difference to an Australian VA compared to a Philippine VA, and also quality of work can be different too. So what I would recommend is, rather than looking for a person, defining the role, because then you can look at it from the lens of what type of person would best suit this role. And if there is turnover, is it going to have a huge effect on that particular role if it's a contractor versus an employee, or that sort of thing. And so I see people hire a VA because it's the cheapest option, but they're not necessarily doing a great job, and there's a lot more time in the handover and they don't quite understand. Whereas if they got a casual employee for that particular role, it probably would have been an easier outcome for them, and vice versa.
There's also the issue of time zones.
Yes.
Which is a bit of a pain point if you're wanting to communicate clearly and have things done timely.
Yes. Exactly. Absolutely.
So Laura, one of the things that I know that I would absolutely love to hand over are, like you said, just certain social media posts, forward planning those. What's another good example? General website updates. But the problem I feel with that, and this might be a control issue, I love how you smiled straight away there. I feel like if I've got to explain it all the time, it would take me to explain how we do things or how I like things being done because I see the results. I feel like it outweighs the actual doing of the job itself. And it also to take time to get someone to get into the business, to get to know the business so they could complete that task well as well, whether it be a VA or an employee. I'd actually considered a VA to do just general online things. You know, we've got, you know, over 12,000 followers, and there's always comments and messages and emails and texts, and the list goes on, and I spend probably a few hours at least in total a day responding every day.
So again, this ties back to what is your culture?
It's not a bad thing. Yeah, okay. Oh, you're asking me my culture. Wait, what?
Sorry, I think there was a delay in internet there. Sorry to speak over you. So I just want to highlight a couple of things that you have said, and that was that it's going to take a lot of time for a person to understand exactly what works for your business and what doesn't. And if you can capture what it is that you're doing in video, you can literally send that to someone whilst you're screening them for, you know, whether they're suitable and that sort of thing. The other thing is, as well, is that if you're really clear on your culture and value, you could literally send them. So like what I tend to do when I'm outsourcing to a VA is, this is what we stand for. This is the most important activity in our business. This is, you know, these are the values that underline it, and this is how we show up, and that sort of stuff. And then I would send them a video of something that I've been doing that works really well. And so then you can invite them to have a conversation based on that. They've got context already, and you haven't had to spend a lot of time, and you'll know straight away from that if they're the right fit, if they even understand what it is that you're talking about, and whether or not they're going to be able to do the work that you require from them the way in which you deliver it. Do you know what I mean? Via the video medium and that sort of thing. So I smiled when you said control, because there is an element of wanting to keep control, but you're completely right in terms of they have to do it in the way that works, because what's the point of outsourcing and paying the money to someone that isn't going to do it and have the same results? But again, if you can come back to those fundamental ideas and really hone in on that queen bee role and articulate that, whether it's in written or video format, that already is going to get rid of a lot of time wasters for you, and the right person will be very easy to identify. So does that help, Candice?
Yeah, that will help. I guess it's definitely something, you know, once we work through our process management and project management and, you know, process mapping and recording our things, maybe that might become more clear as to how the job could be performed, and you know, especially, you know, our brand, the way our branding is, you know, the words I use, I still want to keep that quirky sort of nature about it, and I don't want that to get lost. When,
beautiful.
You know, if they happen to be responding to someone's social media post or something, yeah.
Do you have a word bank?
Not really, no.
So I would take your copies of messages that have worked really well and highlight the words, because that becomes collateral to be able to give to someone that can do it really easily, and they keep your voice. And if a person's an expert in what it is that they're doing, then you're going to find that they'll be able to take that and give you a really good example immediately, that they're capturing your voice and that sort of thing. So there has to be some trust, and you've got to let go of that control to give them the opportunity to prove that they can do that. But you don't have to wait for all of your systems to be up and running, but you can capture the things that are important to you right now and be able to provide that information.
Yeah, I guess you're right. I mean, it wouldn't be hard to copy, really. They would just have to go back through some old posts and see how it's done there. Because, you know, one of the things that even many customers have said, you know, they just love the banter on some social media posts, you know, it's like creating conversation and that sort of thing. So, yeah, cool.
Awesome. I love that. I'd love to find out from you at a later date how this has worked for you once you start to implement these little things that have kind of dropped in for you today. But does that kind of clarify the different type of people that you could bring on and in what kind of function? And are there any questions around anything that I have spoken about today?
For me, that's great. I mean, there's even a few where I thought would be worth giving to a VA. In fact, I've got a staff member who is is on her phone all the time at home, you know, and she could be sitting there responding to some social media posts. I don't know how we would quantify that as a monetary income. Maybe we could discuss that further. You know, how would they get paid to do that? But yeah, anyway, that'd be interesting to look at.
And that's actually a great point. With an employee, you can still offer, there's the base rate that needs to be paid as an employee because you've got fair work and that sort of thing. But you can have particular tasks that are outcome driven. So you can have a particular set fee that you pay them for things that they do. So X amount of, the easiest is you spend X amount of hours each week to do this, and then you're paid for that number of hours. Or it could be like for my staff that are employed, one of the additional things that they can take on is some training stuff. And that is then, okay, cool, you've got your base hourly, and then there's this fee that you get paid anytime you do training. And the training is normally, the scope is very clear. So you do have flexibility with your employees as long as you're meeting the minimum requirements there. So definitely worth exploring.
We are running close to time, Laura, but I did just want to ask one question. I'm not sure if you can answer it briefly though. What are the indicators that it's time for a small business to look at putting on a new staff member?
Awesome. So the main indicators are that you really feel like you don't have time to be able to deliver as well as what you used to. That's a huge indicator. Another indicator is that the mental load feels really heavy, that you're feeling stressed out all the time. It's not as joyful to come to work and do the things that you're wanting to do, that you really do feel like you're wasting your time on things. So like the bookkeeping, for example, there are tasks or roles that are very clearly things that you procrastinate over as well. So if you're procrastinating, but you know they need to be done, or you feel like you're not doing as good a job as what you normally would when it was smaller and easier to manage, that's definitely a very strong indicator that it's time to find some support. And it may be that you just need some support from someone to identify ways that you can become more efficient in things before you're even at the point that you can hire someone. But they're the real main indicators that it's very much how you feel as a business owner too. Things feel harder, it's not as fun, you feel like you're never getting through your to-do list, and you're not wanting to work on the things that you see as taking your business forward.
Yes, and I think two red flags that I've noticed is that if you get to the point where you're having to think about turning down work,
yes.
or wondering about how you can keep up with supply, or if you're finding that you've got increase in complaints or a drop in quality of some sort, it's time to look at adding on in a way. And I guess the bit of advice that I would give is to start that process earlier rather than later, because there will be a lag time. You know, even if you think you're not going to be able to employ somebody full time, start part-time, start casual, like you said, build them up, but get something happening at the first inkling that you're going to need somebody, because there is that skilling up period, a drop in like a learning dip when people come on board as well, for the whole organization when you bring somebody on board. So that would be my little tips.
Yeah, no, I love that. And that's so true. It really is. You can't start soon enough. People wait too long, but you can't start soon enough.
Yeah, exactly. All right, well, we are out of time, so we better wrap up, but I will just give a heads up and a reminder that session 2, this time next week, we're going to be looking at how you afford to put somebody on, and how you can structure your finances to plan for resourcing your business. Is there anything you would like to add to that, Laura, for next week?
No, I think that's perfect. I just am very excited because I think it's going to make a big difference to people taking that step to know that they can do it.
Yes, I think it's very freeing. Once you realize, A, you need to do it, and B, you can finance it. You need those together.
Absolutely.
So, Yeah, so thank you so much for your time today. So this video, I'm hoping, will be up on our website or available by the end of, well, the end of week is, next week is tomorrow, so maybe Monday. So there's some people that couldn't make it in person today that have registered to get the videos, so hopefully that'll be up and running. But thank you all for attending. Thank you for your time today. I hope this has been really valuable. I certainly love to hear about all these different strategies that really make it a bit easier for businesses to get ahead. So thank you very much, and thank you for attending, and we'll see you same time next week.
Thanks so much, everyone.
Right, bye.
Thanks, Laure. That was really good. See you next week.
See you next week.